Reforms brought both a boon to China's peasants and dramatic increases in production. For the first time in 1988, enough food was grown to feed all of China. An important part of today's food distribution is the free market, where peasants are permitted to sell their surplus. We can see the abundance and variety of food products in one of Shanghai's green markets. We were told this is the best department store in Shanghai. It was very well stocked with Western-looking goods which were produced in the free manufacturing zones in China. Today, overproduction of consumer goods, combined with an economic downturn and uncertain future, has left large inventories unsold. During the Cultural Revolution, the party maintained strict control of all art and theater through Jiang Jing, Mao's wife and a former actress. The 1,000-year-old tradition of Chinese opera, along with all foreign theater, was declared reactionary and was banned. Only 6 operas and 2 ballets based on revolutionary subject matters were permitted to be performed. In 1971, we filmed the ballet entitled The Red Detachment of Women. 18 years later, we met one of the performers.
In 1971, because of the Gang of Four, we could only perform revolutionary plays. At that time, nobody respected traditional Chinese opera, and we were not able as young actors to learn enough about the performing arts. It is only after the reforms that traditional Chinese opera again received recognition.
Today, it appears that there are no restrictions on the content of opera or theater pieces. During the Cultural Revolution, artists were not only subjected to many restrictions, but also were subject to humiliation. Creative inspiration had to arise out of revolutionary ideology. In 1971, we saw one sculptor working under the supervision and control of workers and peasants. They were members of the working class, and he was not. Upon completion, all artists' works were submitted to a revolutionary committee for evaluation. If deemed to be ideologically unsound, the artworks were destroyed. We had the privilege of interviewing a famous painter from Shanghai, Mr. Tan Yan, an 80-year-old outspoken survivor of the Cultural Revolution.
For
me, the Cultural Revolution is the funniest moment in Chinese history. Up until the Cultural Revolution, we developed quite well, and then the Gang of Four appeared. They imposed some limitations on painters and forced us to paint revolutionary subjects, such as the Red Army and the Liberation War. My specialty is flowers and birds, but I was only allowed to paint landscapes with some revolutionary historical importance. I was president of the Painters Union, but I was proclaimed a servant of reactionary and a member of the Black Gang. I was forced to paint Mao Zedong's birthplace and other paintings representing our leader. The Red Guards criticized me and boycotted and destroyed my older paintings. And really, all of this was just opposite Mao's policy. Let 100 flowers bloom. In 1971, tricycles were the only taxis for Chinese, and there were very few of them. Buses and bicycles were the only other modes of transportation. Amazing as it may seem, young red pioneers were employed at cross streets to improve traffic flow by reading quotations from the Little Red Book out loud. Today, automobile ownership is not considered reactionary. Jeeps are being produced in a Beijing factory under foreign license for local consumption and for export. Supposedly, to improve production, workers were forced to read Mao's quotations for an hour before the workday started. We filmed a session at a heavy machine factory in Tianjin. We re-interviewed one of these workers, then 22, now 40. During the Cultural Revolution, I was 22. At that time, to get better production results, we used ideas of class struggle and Mao Zedong's quotations. We lost a lot of time reading this material. Today, we know that to get better productivity, we have to organize the work better, as well as improve our professional and technical knowledge. We were told that in 1971, in a deaf and mute school in Beijing, therapists were healing disabled children through ideology and acupuncture. Acupuncture needles inserted in the upper hand were supposed to restore speech. Needles inserted near the ear were said to restore hearing. When we filmed those children presented to us as being healed by this method, they recited for us the quotations of Chairman Mao. In the same school, we are told today that acupuncture and reading the quotations from Mao healed nobody. A school official said that therapy was used for political, not medical or curative reasons. Today, international therapies are being used to help the handicapped children. In this Tianjin hospital, named the Fight Against Imperialism during the Cultural Revolution, the workday of the medical team started with the reading of Mao's quotations. This same hospital today is named Orthopedic Hospital of Tianjin. We showed the 1971 filming of an operation to the doctors who performed the surgery. We filmed them performing an operation to remove a thyroid tumor. Anesthesia was done by acupuncture needles inserted in the patient's ear. During the operation, the patient read Mao's quotations. "18 years later, we asked the same doctors about this operation.
看了这片子，倒是很有感想。所以毛泽东思想这种体系啊，还是在我们当前还是有很有指导意义的。但是
I think that Mao's ideas have some value, but that it was wrong to apply them metaphysically as we saw in this piece of old film. We are still using acupuncture as anesthesia in cases where the patient is conscious, and it has been proven that this type of anesthesia can reduce the pain. Regarding reading quotes of Mao Zedong, it could have some psychological effect and help the patient to heal himself through believing.
实质上呢，关键的还得靠针刺的镇痛效果。因此呢，我们现在还是强调呢，物质是第一的东西，精神呢，在某种情况下还可起作用。
In 1971, under exceptional and unexpected permission, we filmed a May 7th school for cadres. These schools were a peculiar invention of the Cultural Revolution intended to re-educate intellectuals through manual labor. However, to us, they resembled more forced labor concentration camps. It was the task of the candidates for re-education to grow rice in the sand. In this particular May 7th school near Beijing, the inmates were professors, functionaries, artists, and bankers. Engineers and doctors were required to keep the country. Though our Chinese hosts found all those we had previously filmed and wanted to re-interview, peculiarly, they could not find any of the people we had interviewed in the May 7th school. It was recommended that we interview others who were in a similar school. We showed them the cassette of our 1971 film on their home videos.
I was not in this school, but I was in a very similar one. I volunteered to go. We worked hard physically, and we had a lot of political instruction. It was hard, but when I think about it today, I know it was the impact of the ultra-left ideology.
I was not in this school, but in a very similar one. At that time, a lot of people were volunteers, but the majority were forced to go to this school, and it caused a lot of problems in people's lives. Fortunately, such schools no longer exist.
I don't like the May 7th schools because they humiliated people.
Even the circus was used as a tool of political propaganda during the Cultural Revolution. One of the favorite acts of the circus was the portrayal of Vietnamese patriots humiliating American soldiers. The symbol of American imperialism was Coca-Cola. Today, China has been decorated by the trademark Enjoy Coca-Cola. Now, this soft drink has become the symbol for China's openness. Many foreign products are now advertised on street billboards, evidence that China is moving towards a consumer society. Cultural Revolution, the only billboards that could be seen displayed the visage of Chairman Mao in various phases of his life. It was a common sight to see marching youths on pilgrimages to Mao's birthplace. Often they marched and camped out for weeks to arrive in Shaoshan. When they arrived, they behaved as if they were entering a shrine. There they prayed, gave homage to their God, and recited his quotations. Today, Mao's birthplace is merely a tourist attraction for local people and the military. It is visited infrequently. For all practical purposes, Mao has been totally downgraded. Though literally hundreds of millions of little red books were printed, they are nowhere to be seen. What role does Maoism play in China today? Will the events in Tiananmen change this role? Across the ravine stands the house of Mao's late cousin. Today, it is the site of Chez Mao, a private restaurant owned and operated by his cousin's widow. One of the now rarely displayed portraits of Mao graces the restaurant wall. When asked what Mao would say if he saw this restaurant, the proprietor said,
"If President Mao were alive now, I'm sure that he would support us. We are really working based on his ideas. Without the late president, we wouldn't have today's China. In this restaurant, we receive customers and friends like you. President Mao would be glad to see this."
One of the few remaining statues of Mao can be seen in front of the Wuhan iron mill. Of course, his portrait still dominates Tiananmen Square. In October 1989, we were one of the first foreign crews to film at Tiananmen, the site of the June 4th student rebellion and massacre, where the world learned of the student democracy movement. It was still under military control. This square, the largest in the world, was witness to the terrible bloodletting of students who were demanding more freedom and more democracy. On the other side, the government called the protests counter-revolutionary, the students obstructionists and hooligans. The massacre was called the turmoil, as the government sought to rewrite history. They wanted the events of Tiananmen forgotten as quickly as possible. While we filmed, tourists with special permission were allowed to visit the square and to enter Mao's mausoleum. Following our visit in 1989, we concluded that the Maoism of 1971, like the man in the mausoleum, was dead. His quotations did not help production, did not improve education, did not prevent starvation, did not restore speech or hearing. Mao's vision for China had failed. Tiananmen allowed a coalition of hardline leaders to bring back the heavy hand of state repression, to crush dissent with fear. The hold of the hardliners, though firm today, is tenuous. One can only hope that the period of openness and reform has left a mark on China that the current repressions cannot erase. If it were 1971, these children would be singing "The East is Red." The sun rises in the east, and Chairman Mao is the sun who leads the revolution. Today, after a decade of openness, they sing the anthem of the children of the world. Does China's destiny lie between the hopes and aspirations of these singing children and the loyalties of these marching troops? For the future, China must find its own solutions to its problems. It is clear, however, that in today's changing world, China can no longer be isolated as it was before. 如果干了屁股，你就睡觉。如果干了屁股，你就睡觉。